of what we see here today, that whenever you return to your cities and you see a black man, a black woman, don't ask him, what is your social, political, or religious affiliation, or what is your status? Know that he is your brother. And if he needs help, you are obligated to help your brother because he is your brother. You must live beyond the narrow restrictions of the divisions that have been imposed upon us. Well, some of us are here because it's history making. Some of us are here because it's a march through which we can express anger and rage with America for what she has and is doing to us. So we're here for many reasons, but the basic reason that this was called was for atonement and reconciliation. So it is necessary for me, in as short a time as possible, to give as full an explanation of atonement as possible. As I said earlier, atonement is the 5th stage in an 8-stage process. So let's go back to the first stage of the process that brings us into perfect union with God. And the first stage is the most difficult of all, because when we are wrong and we are not aware of it, someone has to point out the wrong. I want to say this again, but I want to say it slowly, and I really want each one of these points to sink in. How many of us in this audience at some time or another have been wrong? Will we just raise our hands? Okay. Now, when we are wrong, Lord knows we want to be right. The most difficult thing is when somebody points it out. Do we accept it? Do we reject it? Do we hate the person who pointed out our wrong? How do we treat the person who points out our wrong? Now, I want you to follow.
Greetings, listeners. I begin in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful. I bear witness that there is but one God. Welcome to the Black Agenda here on the Street 919 FM. I am Brother David Muhammad, and we're going up to 9 o'clock this morning. And in a short while from now, I will open up the telephone lines and take your calls on 3420081 and 4665391. You can also send text messages or WhatsApp messages straight to me on 3320214. And we are streaming live on the Facebook page of the Street 919 FM. So, my beloved people, another week in Trinidad and Tobago. Quite a spectacular week. The week of emancipation. And whereas normally, as in before last year, I would have been to so many venues to deliver emancipation addresses, lectures, speeches. This year, as was the case last year, so much of it was done online. And I have to admit, I mean, even that forum is not stagnant. So 2019, as usual, did the circuit. I would have spoken for WASA, for TN Tech, a couple government ministries at the Kwame Ture Center, guests both at home and overseas. But last year it was online. But this year it seems like it would have evolved somewhat from last year, in that the platforms are expanding a bit and a lot more effort is going into the publicity and marketing of some of the social media platforms. And of course, one great thing about it has been the way that we have been able to integrate a lot of our inter-Caribbean efforts. So last night, for example, I was the guest of the Institute for Life. Those very, very progressive African Muslim brothers. And, you know, we had brothers and sisters on from England, different parts of England, from Jamaica, Barbados, Guyana, Grenada, of course, all across Trinidad, Tobago, Canada. And it was really, really a beautiful forum. So I continue with my Wednesday night presentations live on Facebook on the Black Agenda page. And that's what we have for now. But we did pledge that no matter what, regardless of what, that we're going to continue with the mission. So the classes at the Kwame Ture Center for our young students are continuing, but we're doing Zoom, online. We're still doing 7 subjects. We had our Black Studies session, which we do officially with all the students once a month, and that was last week. And again, young people. And I'll tell you what really touched me, what really moved me, was that on Emancipation Day, which was Sunday, of course the public holiday was Monday, but we had a book sale where my 3 books, Black Studies, Knowledge is Power, and the new one, Black Youth at Risk from Juvenile Delinquency to Criminal Gang Activity. The first 2 on that day were $100, and the new book, Black Youth at Risk from Juvenile Delinquency to Criminal Gang Activity, was reduced to $200. But looking at Black Studies, let's say over the last month, the amount of people who got that book, who would have been probably considered to be too young to read it when it came out 6 years ago. That, I will tell you frankly, has filled me with a sense of accomplishment. Because we launched Black Studies almost exactly 6 years ago. And from about 3 months later, we hit the road, went to Jamaica, launched over there. 6 days later, went to England, launched at 3 venues over there, London, Slough, Birmingham. Then in February, went to Detroit, Chicago, then New York, multiple times, multiple venues in New York. Then Canada. Canada was actually the first place. And here, knowledge, wisdom, understanding, Black history, African heritage, studies on racism, the history of the prophets as Africans, Black economics, Black sociology, Black psychology, Black ideology. And 6 years later, persons 17, 18, 19, and 20 years old, who at the time would have been like 11, 12, 13 years old when the book was launched, are getting it now, and our vision for that consciousness is those right now who are 9, 10, 11 years old, that within a few short years they will also grow into that consciousness. And along with the classes for the young people at the Kwame Ture Center, it is a great feeling, especially after doing this for so many years. Soon it will be 3 decades. And as a young person in my 20s, started this when I was 22. And most of the time in my early 20s through my 30s, most of my audiences were always older than me. Always. Then when I got to my 40s, I guess it started leveling out a little bit. And now that I'm, now that I'm where I am now, the audiences are younger and younger and younger. Really through the work that we're doing at the Kwame Ture Center, but the average age of our listeners, not on this radio station, of course, or not on some of the other platforms, but on social media, on Instagram, and the sessions that we do, hosted by the Kwame Ture Center. We're proud of our young people, and on Wednesday, our topic was leadership. And we have a great, great vision for them. Something else magnificent happened this week as well, because we're still in emancipation mode. But yesterday, and I didn't even get to speak about this last week, nor during the week, not even on Wednesday night, but yesterday, Friday, we launched another great initiative, the African Farmers Market. Now, these are projects that we had lined up in case the state of emergency is not lifted and we still have lockdown restrictions. Well, on Friday, at the Kwame Ture Center, we had our first African Farmers Market, where the African farmers that we're working with, they brought in their produce. People will drive in. We had it outside on tables and the tents. Our people would drive in, make their purchases, drive out. Drive in, make their purchases, drive out. And although I myself was not there yesterday, and all of the produce sold out a good couple hours before we were finished. Again, this is something we intend to build on. From what I understand, there was cassava, dasheen, yams, okras, tomatoes. Come on, you don't expect me to remember all this, but let me see. And again, we're working with different African farmers from across the zone, across the country, more or less. And again, so we had salad beans, melangen, also pumpkins, pimentos, all freshly picked from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. And our people only by WhatsApp messages and text messages and a quick social media message. But on Friday, by the grace of Allah, we were able to bring together African farmers, have the produce there, and it was a great success. And if all the produce sold out, beloved listeners, then it is our intention to just do our best to increase the volume. increase the volume of production so that our African farmers can become more prosperous and independent, and we as African families can become more self-sufficient. I've said it on so many occasions that if 1,000 poor people grow $1,000 worth of food in a poor community in 1 year, that is $1 million in added food security into that community. But we don't put the words food and security in the same sentence, unfortunately. So, beloved, this is why black people must grow their own food so that we can become independent, self-reliant, autonomous. We can control our own destiny, and we don't end up being dependent on decisions made by price-fixing criminal supermarket cartels who think that they have the prerogative at any moment to boost their profits based on our dependency on their product. No. So African people must think of instilling the culture of agriculture in the next generation. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in 2013 said, "For the ex-slave, land ownership is the basis of independence and the pathway to wealth. The black slave codes restricted us from the right to own land. Black people were prohibited during slavery from buying or renting farmland except in designated all black but white controlled areas. Black people were forbidden to sell farm products like flour, cotton, hay, rice, peas, and wheat without written permission from a white man, thus disallowing black independent agribusiness and eliminating the potential threat of black competition in farming." Now, that's the phrase that I want you to focus on here in Minister Farrakhan's statement, because he's talking about the elimination of black business competition. And even though during slavery it was done by law, now it's done by culture, tradition, and the law. And all kinds of impediments and obstacles and restrictions are established to prevent us from being landowners and business entrepreneurs, which is historic. So they had this system of sharecropping where black farmers were allowed to rent usage of land, and the white owners of the land would still benefit more than the black farmers who were actually doing the labor. Those are historical shackles and chains that we must break ourselves out of today. We must support black business, buy food from black business, and grow as much of our own food as we can. And even if we're not growing our own food, we have to teach our children the practice of utilizing small spaces, grow boxes, hydroponics, small plots, to even grow short-term crops. Even if we're not growing them for ourselves, we have to teach the culture of agriculture. And in America, the amount of acres of land that were once owned by black people that they lost. Again, this whole idea of we have to sell our land, leave rural areas and go and look for jobs in urban areas, and then the people who are employing us in the urban areas, giving us jobs, own land in both the urban and the rural areas. And the same rural areas that we would have fled from, they're controlling the farming there and end up indirectly selling us back the same food that we were growing. So all the great thing about this particular initiative as well is the fact that there are so many other great African farmers that we're working with that were not even involved in the first one. So there's a lot to look forward to there. So Fridays, this Friday coming, just drive into the compound at the Kwame Ture Center, and you'll see the farmers there with their produce. Okay, I'm so happy about that. So on Sunday we were selling books. On Friday we were selling food. And all managed under the pandemic. We have to live, beloved, and we have to work. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said once, if you're not working, you're stealing. Think as a man. You're not working, you young, you fit, you strong. If you're out of school, not pursuing an education, and you're young, fit, and strong, and you're not working, but you're eating, Elijah Muhammad said, well, then it just might be that you're stealing. Because every man must produce, every man must work, every man must sacrifice. And we must all unite, because this is organization here. And let me remind you, the great Kwame Ture, formerly Stokely Carmichael of Trinidad and Tobago, made the distinction between mobilization and organization. We have to be in a state of organization. Kwame Ture said mobilization is temporary. We come together on the basis of an issue in the community. A sister lost her job. We mobilize. A brother was arrested unlawfully. We mobilize. The enemy just raised the price on something that we consume unfairly. We mobilize. But we get together at the spur of the moment, on the spot, for mobilization, which is temporary, but organization is permanent. When we're organized, we are already collectively together in a structured format, as Allah says in the Holy Quran in Surah 3, that when we confront an enemy, we must go forward together as a solid wall. And whatever differences or disagreement that we have among us as a family, we must settle those differences first before we go out into battle, or else when we go out onto the battlefield, then those differences will manifest out there, and our enemies will take advantage of the conflict that exists between us. So the Quran there is talking about warfare, but the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said business is warfare. Business is not just trade and commerce. It's not just economics and finance. But business is the protection of a generation, of a culture or an ethnicity, to ensure a consistent pathway to wealth for them in the next generation. Read Professor Selwyn Ryan's book on black entrepreneurship, the black entrepreneurship experience, and he will tell you about the struggle of the people in the so-called drag mall or the People's Mall and the Port of Spain vendors. And Professor Selwyn Ryan will educate you on what was described as a warfare that some of the Syrian businessmen were waging against poor African vendors, small business owners. But do you think that any of the Syrian businessmen would come out of their offices or out of their businesses, cross the street, and begin to verbally persecute the poor African vendors? No. But that level of warfare would take place through the municipal police, through the office of the mayor, through the elected politicians who they fund and finance, who they may have influence over. So they themselves will never confront face to face the vendors whom they're seeking to economically oppress. But a form of warfare was being waged. And that is why the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said there are 3 sciences that our former slave masters never wanted us to know about and that they would never teach us. And those 3 sciences that they wanted to keep out of the minds of black people were 1, the science of business, 2, the science of reproduction, and 3, the science of warfare. And Minister Farrakhan said, if we're setting up business, we have to have an army. We have to have a brotherhood. We have to have a network of persons who are also involved in the security of what we produce, manufacture, create, and present to our community. Or else some of the most bizarre forces would come out against you, and they will use your own people against you. So be prepared. Now remember, this conversation here is about food, agribusiness, African farming. And when you look at the experience of African farmers in this country just over the last 10 years, it has been as if war has been waged against them. The Shagaramas farmers, the bulldozing of their crops, the attempt to wrestle land away from them. So what the Nation of Islam has done now is that we have brothers who have different tracts of land. Yes, some out far east. And we're growing food. One brother brought in a van load, tray load of watermelons and corn. Another brother bought baskets of okras and cucumbers. And then we unite with the other African farmers who are growing the dasheen and the yams and the edos and the cassava and the tomatoes and the lettuce and the pak choy and all the other stuff. Network, that is organization. That's not just mobilization, that's organization, where we remain perpetually in a state of being organized. Now I'm going to talk about this a bit more on Wednesday evening on my Black Agenda Conversation on my Facebook page. Every Wednesday, 8 o'clock. Now, 2 other things, and then I'll open up the lines. 2 other things. 1, I want to, from the depth of my heart, condemn the violent act against our beloved brother, Prime Minister Ralph Gonsalves of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I want to condemn in the strongest manner what he had endured over the last couple of days, where he was violently assaulted, where he was hit. That is terrible, inexcusable, and really embarrassing. And what bothers me even more about it is that even he's one of the prime ministers of the Caribbean that I would consider to be a friend and a brother. He is actually the last in a generation of prime ministers. And I am not 100% certain, but he might be currently the longest serving prime minister in the Caribbean. He might be. It's either him or he's definitely the longest running, the longest on a straight run. That's without question. The only other person who might have been there longer than him would be Dr. Keith Mitchell of Grenada. But Dr. Keith Mitchell has been in and out of office a couple times. Dr. Ralph Gonsalves has been there for, something like 20 years. Literally like some of the older Caribbean leaders like Dr. Eric Williams of Trinidad and Tobago and V.C. Byrd of Antigua. But one of the reasons that this bothered me so much is because he is a people person. I don't know of much politicians like him, prime ministers, who would go into a crowd that is protesting against him. Remember, we live in this era now where it's all about security and keeping a distance and bodyguards and, staying in an exalted tower behind a window. Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, as prime minister, had an open door policy in his office. You could walk off the street into the prime minister's office, and once he's available, you can sit down and talk to him. I have been in the presence of Dr. Ralph Gonsalves a good couple times, but I remember a meeting with him at his office in Kingstown in St. Vincent. There's this joke that some of the people in St. Vincent would make about, because the building is 7 stories, either 7 or 9 stories, might be 9, and he's on the top floor, and the elevator isn't working. So when you go to see the prime minister, it's like a trek. And I remember myself and my brother Mikel of Nation of Islam in St. Vincent, we went to visit the prime minister and take a copy of Black Studies for him. And there's this myth about there being a secret elevator somewhere in the building that the prime minister takes, because it's quite a trek, trust me, to get to the top floor of that building. But that man has such a loving spirit for his people, and he has endured a good couple scandals well. They have really tried to drag that man's name through the mud with personal issues. And in spite of all of that, the people love him. And they've re-elected him. There were so many occasions where it was said, all right, this is definitely the end of the road for him, and he'll win, and he'll win, and he'll win again. And I just hope that this does not change him. I hope that he does not become so embittered by this experience that it makes him into a different kind of prime minister, to not freely move among the people. I mean, it would be almost impossible, I guess, to not be mindful of that dreadful experience that he would have had. I mean, I'm telling you, that hurt me when I heard that. That hurt me. So I just hope that he remains as rooted as he is, that he maintains that love for the community that he has. I remember the first time I visited St. Vincent to speak, it was 20 years ago. 20 years ago, it was 2001. And I remember driving past the government building for his party, and the brother was pointing out to me the symbol that they had, which was a red star. And the red star on the white background is perceived as a communist emblem. And it was then that I really began to learn about him and his socialist position. So I pray that he has a speedy recovery over there in Barbados, and that his spirit is not injured by this. But, you know, having said that, it came up in our conversation. And let me tell you frankly, let me tell you straight up. Regarding the whole COVID situation, there is a high degree of media censorship in speaking about that. All right? So that is not a topic that we are welcomed to explore in any depth due to the censorship. But of course, on my social media platforms, I'll address those issues. But the protest apparently was about or centered around the idea of mandatory vaccination. And because of this same kind of censorship, and because of the unwillingness to hear both sides of the discussion across the region, I think it would have and is creating a different kind of resentment that unfortunately may manifest itself in that manner. I understand it was a woman who had attacked the Prime Minister. But we'll see what comes out of that. But trust me, I wish that man speedy recovery. I was with him in Jamaica once. That would have been September 2014. You know, and we spoke and, you know, hung out for a little bit in the lobby of the Pegasus Hotel. You know, and and let me just mention this now. On Emancipation Day, again, while during the book sale, because I was in the office and we had persons coming in, say 2 at a time, conducting the sales, and then they'll go, and then other people will come in and then go. So we're having this constant flow of people. That was from 1 o'clock to 5 o'clock. And we stayed till about after 6. But at some point during the middle of the day, I started to get all of these messages about a statement that was on the Prime Minister's social media page. This is our Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley. And remember, I'm engaged. So I glanced at this thing. I read it, and it disturbed me. Reason being, part of the statement was a narrative that is used by our enemies against us. And what I'm referring to is this notion that, well, all races, not just Africans, all races suffered some form of slavery. And also went on to say, and there was slavery in Africa before the white people came. I'll tell you frankly, doesn't matter who pushes that narrative. I am hypersensitive to that. Because my current research project in building Black Studies Book 2, which inshallah should be out either late next year, 2022, or 2023. We're working on it. But one of the major research projects that I have been doing over the last few years, and I discussed this in length on the phone with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And that is, we want to send a proposal to CARICOM to criminalize denial of the African Holocaust. We want to make it a criminal offense out of the office of the Nation of Islam in the Eastern Caribbean, headquartered at the Kwame Ture Center. We want to criminalize denial of the African Holocaust. I already did major presentations on this in Guyana and also Jamaica. Now, part of the template for this is the Jewish Holocaust, where right now as we speak, it is a criminal offense in 17 countries, including France, Germany, Spain, Italy, Belgium, Greece, of course, Israel. It is a criminal offense to deny the Jewish Holocaust. A denial of the Jewish Holocaust entails three things. One, discounting the number of Jews that were killed, saying it's less than 6 million. Two, suggesting that the objective of the Jewish Holocaust was not extermination, but deportation of Jews. And three, to say that gas chambers were not part of the extermination process. In any of those 17 countries, if you utter that in public or post it on social media or talk about it on the radio or television, you're a criminal and you can go to jail. For the past few years, we've been working on this project, criminalizing denial of the African Holocaust. And those, especially some of the East Indian academics and some of the whites, they try to take away the credibility of reparations by stating that all peoples, not just Africans, were victims of slavery and that Africans enslaved other Africans. So when I saw that coming out from the Prime Minister, I said I have to respond to that. Because anytime that comes up, I respond. Sad thing is, though, I put out my statement and we have a break coming up, so I'll read the statement after and we'll talk about it a bit more. But the Minister of National Security, who has been my friend for 28 long years, felt that he should facilitate an attack against me on social media, which was so unfortunate because the Prime Minister changed his statement. And I salute the Prime Minister for that. I respect him more now for doing that. He didn't try to justify it or argue his way out of it. He would have probably read it over and said, you know what? We need to remove that. And he edited the statement. And I respect him. I salute him for so doing. I'll continue this as soon as we come back from the break. Stay with us. Don't go away.
Just take a time from the inside. From the inside of me. From the inside, yes, of me and me, you delight. I want you to delight in my life. From the inside, yes, right up from the inside, yes, of me, and set me on fire. Set from the inside. Give it. What's that? Let's praise it right from the inside. So from the inside, yes, of me and me, you delight. I want you to delight in my life. On the inside, yes, right up from the inside. Oh, when the jacket full and fell over, set me, come feel it. Set me on fire. On the inside. Hey, set on the inside. Hey, come on, who say? Hey, say all I want is for you. they see is you, Lord. Glorify your name. Fill my life till all they see is you, Lord. Glorify your name. Fill my life till all they see is you, Lord. Glorify your name. Fill my life till all they see is you, Lord. Glorify your
Are you experiencing loss of vision, or are your glasses broken? At Value Optical, we're open, and we're here to help. You can have your urgent eyeglasses in 3 days with packages starting at $695. When you visit us, be mindful of the 3 W's. Wear your mask, wash your hands, and watch your distance. Please call us toll-free 800-2020 for expert advice on your vision needs or to book your appointment. Value Optical, caring for your eyes.
Looking for a safe and relaxed professional massage therapist and nutritionist? Look no further. Nature's Touch with Empress Judy and Associates offers a natural approach to better health. Treat yourself to a professional massage therapy and nutrition advice in a safe and relaxed atmosphere. Rejuvenate your body, mind, and soul at Nature's Touch Therapy. For an appointment, please call or WhatsApp 1-866-398-8282 or visit our Facebook page. Remember, your health is our responsibility at Nature's Touch.
Hey, you keeping safe? I hope so. I don't really know what will happen when everything will back up, but the line had to go on. But in the meantime, just come online with the live wire. I'm on the Street 919 FM every Saturday from 5 to 8 p.m. Or you could check us out on the live on Facebook at the Street 919 FM or on YouTube at Street TV. Don't forget to share the live. That might just be as important as you keeping safe. So mask up, sanitize, tune in to the Street 919 FM, Lime on the Live Wire, Saturday afternoons, 5 to 8 p.m. Don't worry, I gotta be home in time for the curfew. Keep safe.
Was good. I went and did some doubles, the place was good. I went by the beach and I watched the skies, it was a paradise. But when COVID touched down that day, and I see the cases start to raise, I tell you, if you don't get vaccinated, it's trouble. For the place to be good again, for the place to be good again, for the place to be good again. No more lockdown in Porter's Plain, for TNT to be good again. Right? So we could mash it up, shell it up and turn it over. So we could mash it up, shell it up and turn it over. Yo, this is Iwer, George, the big boss of the business, and this is the message from the North Central Regional Health Authority.
Blessings in the wonderful name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. You are invited to listen to the Final Hour broadcast heard every Monday from 12 midnight to 5 a.m. in the morning on the Street 919 FM radio. Here my mom, Pastor Helen Garcia, and myself, Pastor Valentine Garcia Jr., preach the Word of God to the elderly, youth, and children. We can be contacted at 629-0113 or 623-8444. The church is located at 26 Prince Street in Port of Spain. We look forward to you joining us. God bless you.
As my life I lay it on the altar, as my life.
Better vision for your physical eyes, and through the eyes of faith, let healing arise in your mind, body, and spirit. At Natural Healing Ministries, we teach kingdom principles for living that brings the blessing of God to your mind, body, and soul.
NHM Professional Associates are located at number 10 Moody Stewart Street, Monterey Post, San Fernando. For more info, contact Dr. Desmond Phillip at NHM on 349-3494.
NHM Professional Associates can be heard live on the Street 919 FM every Saturday from 9:05 to 9:55 a.m.
Share the live. Share the live. The Street 919 FM on Facebook and Instagram. Share the live. Iowa George on Instagram. Share the live. Iowa TV and Street TV on YouTube. Share the live. The Street 919 FM.
Required. Brotherhood is demanded. Brotherhood is obligatory.
Black man get up, black man stand up, black man you better listen.
So there's a need for brotherhood.
Black man get up, black man stand up, black man you better listen. Black man get up, black man stand up, black man you better listen.
Brotherhood is demanded.
Black man get up, black man stand up, black man you better listen.
Brotherhood is required. Brotherhood is demanded. Brotherhood is obligatory. Brotherhood is essential, it is urgent, and it is compulsory.
All right, welcome back and welcome to the second hour of the Black Agenda here on the Street 919 FM. And trust me, I want to go to the lines within less than 5 minutes. So just to finish off this, so it's talking about on Emancipation Day, the statement that the Prime Minister put out on social media. Well, his greeting for emancipation. And I'll read my statement. Okay. So in response to what the Prime Minister said, and again, in me seeing that, I responded to the content more so than him, because I don't know if someone wrote it for him, a speech writer, or some person in his office who might have the task of sending out those greetings for events such as Emancipation and Eid and Diwali and Christmas and Carnival and so on. So I did not name him, but clearly it was to his statement. So let me read my statement. I said, "It is absolutely shameful, outrageous, and embarrassing for any black man on Emancipation Day to say that every people, every race has experienced some history of slavery. The enslavement that Africans endured was a dehumanizing, genocidal mass murder that involved arbitrary executions, torture, trauma, rape, and the destruction of the African family. This occurred over a 300-year period. No people, no other race, have ever experienced any process even close to this extreme brutality that African people have suffered. Furthermore, the institutionalized racial hatred and oppression and intergenerational after effects of the Black Holocaust have had such far-reaching consequences that we still feel the impact of them today. Also, to say that on the African continent slavery existed before the Europeans arrived is to trivialize, forgive, and excuse the evils perpetrated by the Europeans against us by comparing them to basic domestic servitude that existed in traditional African societies. These are the kinds of statements that people who hate black people utter. We cannot be spokespersons for our own enemies, enslavers, and colonizers. We must speak up for our people who are victims and not betray them by ignorant, insensitive statements. And trust me, there is so much more that could have been said on that topic. Remember, again, one of my key projects is criminalizing denial of the African Holocaust, and our enemies push that narrative in trying to discredit the argument for reparations. They try to say, well, it's not just you all, it's all peoples who have suffered some kind of slavery. And there was slavery in Africa before the white man came. No. No. You cannot compare servitude to the African Holocaust. And if the Jews in 17 countries have made it a criminal offense to say those kinds of things about their Holocaust, and ours was much worse, then how could we sit back on statements like that? Did you know that the day before the Olympics started in Japan this year, that the person in charge of the ceremony, a major head of the Olympic Committee, was fired the day before the Olympics started? Do you know why he was fired the day before Olympics started? Because they found him on video 31 years ago saying something about the Jewish Holocaust that was not within the narrative. This is a Japanese Olympic official. They dug up some video of him in 1990 and fired him from his job. And on further investigation, apparently he didn't really make a statement about the Jewish Holocaust, but he made a remark about a joke that was made about the Jewish Holocaust. Fired. If you listen to the Black Agenda earlier this year, around February or so, there was in the news a case of a, listen and think. There was a case of a 96-year-old man. Are you hearing me? A 96-year-old man who was sent to prison for something that he did 70 years before. What did he do? Did he kill people? Did he kidnap people? No, it was two of them. One was a librarian. The other was a security officer. But they worked for Nazi Germany that perpetrated the Holocaust against the Jews. One of them was 96 years old. I think the other was 92 or 93 years old. They were involved with Nazi Germany when they were in their 20s. And they put them in jail because of their peripheral involvement in the Jewish Holocaust. And now you can't even say anything that is wrong about them. More or less, don't let them find that out that they have any links or you have any links. And their phrase is just two words: never again. They got the law on their side. They got academia on their side. They got governments in all these countries on their side. But beloved, our Holocaust was much worse. Now, like I said just before we went to the break, when I put that statement out there, the Minister of National Security, again, my friend of 28 years, facilitated an attack against me for saying this. But I feel vindicated because the Prime Minister changed the statement. And I respect and salute the Prime Minister for being that mature and for having that kind of vision and demonstrating that kind of leadership. But on further looking at the post that I put on Facebook, that same statement got 520 likes and 223 shares, which clearly means that, okay, the people who read that said, this is a point here that needs to be made. 520 likes. I looked at the statement that my brother, the Minister of National Security, put on his page, got 42 likes. And 4 people shared it. But the same few giving comments, or commenting round and round and round. And I'm saying to you, this should not be how we deal with issues between us. You disagree with something, then deal with the content, as I did. And I don't love my Prime Minister any less. I don't love the Minister of National Security any less. As far as I'm concerned, they are my brothers. And the Minister of National Security is still my friend. And they both know that if I can be of service to them and they need me in something in their personal lives, they know they could call me. Just like all the people who jumped on the bandwagon to attack me for saying this, they all know they could come to my office on any day and say, Brother David, you know what? I need this or I need that. And they know I wouldn't reproach and throw back in their face and say, but you said this and you did that. No, because you know me as a brother. But by the fact that the Prime Minister changed the statement, you should take that as a lesson. That if you disagree with someone, talk about his height, his weight, where he lives, where he was born, what he does, his job, where he works. No. That is the black on black self-hatred, Willie Lynch, backstabbing, backbiting, crabs in a barrel mentality that is destroying us. And once again, I say to my beloved Prime Minister, I salute you for changing the statement. And who knows, maybe someone else wrote it who hears that narrative, because like I said, in this country, there are some Indian academics who put that out there in their argument to try to discredit the position on reparations. Who knows, that person might have been reprimanded. We don't know. Or maybe it was just a thought, a peripheral thought in the mind of the Prime Minister. That is a common thing that a lot of people say. Let me say it. So again, we cannot presume or judge or jump to conclusions. I am aware that my statement was harsh, but this is an extremely sensitive matter, and I pray that we can move forward with a better understanding. Because I will admit to you, there are persons within our community who would have said things like that before. And we just educate, we educate, we educate. And they say, you know what? That's deep. That's a point. All right, so let me go to the phones. 342-0081 and 466-5391. Let me just let you know that I'm at the Kwame Ture Center every Saturday morning right after these programs, and we will facilitate the book sale throughout the rest of this month for as long as I am there at the building, which will be Saturday morning. So Saturday mornings basically from 9:15, I'm at the Kwame Ture Center. Remember also the African Farmers Market, which we've started on Friday from 11 o'clock throughout the day. And you are welcome to come in. Now, I'm opening up the telephone lines. A lot of things happen. I will not be facilitating a angry rhetoric against anyone for those statements. All right, we have dealt with the matter. We've shed light. We've educated. Now we understand better. So we move forward. All right, first caller, good morning. Are you there?
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Yeah, Brother David, I want to say something since about Taria. Whenever she come along by you, can remind her that there's something there for her. Also, I want to connect because you know the lockdown, I can't get the others copies to give away. I want to give the rest. Also, yourself, I have two for you. Brother David,
yes.
The Olympics. There was a guy who refused to participate in a game. I can't remember exactly what it was. Where there was a Jew, and they kicked him out of the game.
Wait, say that again, please.
They kicked him out.
Say that again.
I saw about a month ago. You know that this guy got a slap in his face, Macron, from somebody in the crowd. He was walking around the crowd.
Oh, yes.
I didn't hear that on the local media at all.
Right.
So, Brother Gonzalez, I met him a few times already in Trinidad.
Yeah, but now that's another thing. He is a man that so many people would have met.
But also we have to remember, Brother David, that people are angry outside of here.
I know.
I'm not supporting what is said there.
Of course.
People are angry across the world with this vaccine because nobody is telling you exactly, you know what's polio. You know what the yellow fever? You know this other vaccine that they give you? Nobody's telling you what this is all consists of, you know. All they're telling you, take the vaccine. People are upset. And I was listening to a program last night where they are going to be forming non-vaccine hospitals.
But let me say, wait, caller.
Yeah.
We're not really entertaining discussions on that, on this forum.
Yeah, but I know. But okay, I was just saying that. Anyway.
Yeah.
But David, I was listening to what his name there, what's his name in Brother Hillary.
Professor Hillary Beckles.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I learned something. He was on BBC with Zina Bedawi, and they were speaking about 1966 in Barbados.
Mm-hmm.
That the Queen of England paid a visit to Barbados.
Yeah, that was for their independence. Yeah.
1966. On the plantation that was owned by the family that had 300 slaves, the Queen of England. She went to Barbados in 1966. I learned that from Brother Hillary dealing with preparation. Brother David, we have to also remember that yes, you see the whole thing about this thing. We're in a state now. We're in a state here in this place here where people are very angry. In Africa, you could have become when you was a slave. They had to mind you, your children, your wife, They had to take care of you, and you could have risen up and be ruler of that kingdom of that kingdom out there in Africa. So that different thing. There's on one of those videos there's they call them $5 Indian. $5 Indian. Where they show you when they started to give all the land to the Indians outside, where these white people pretended that they were Indian and they $5 and they got everything that they got. So when I hear talking about along this line with reparation, everybody was part of slavery or the capital. They are looking at what benefit the Africans have to get from the brutality and the Holocaust that took place. You understand? They are looking to benefit from it also. It started with Satmarad. Not before he died, he had plenty of reparation. He started talking about the Indians went through slavery too. You understand? So we have to be careful about these people and who we include when we talk about African people. You understand? And what you are doing there to make it a criminal, you understand, to deny that. I think you need full support from a lot of things are starting in Caribbean, but nothing around the world. They need support of black people are concerned, because this is facts, this is truth about a picture down there Sunday, right? That with the Pope John Paul II kissing downstairs the black Madonna and child. I posted, and a guy who I always have this discussion. I told him, I say, you want to get, I say, I will tell you mine, and I look for what. I saw it already.
Yeah, and we always show the students. Huh? We always show the students that image.
You have to see it
on PowerPoint, because we have the image on computer.
To see that the Montanos and they have a factory in Aruka. I think they should publicize a little more. You understand? This chocolate factory. Happy to see they have it in Aruka there. Black business again. Now all people are, you see, when they come into a lot of things outside of GMO food, you have to be very careful with that, Brother David. I want people to look at something outside of this. Look at tomato and look at corn. All of them resemble. All look the same thing. Watch the tomato and cut the tomato and to buy about 2 or 3 and keep it to cut one and see something. GMO, we have to be very, very careful about this thing that's in, Brother David. I know a lot of people want to make a comment. I have so much, but I can't say much more because I like to be fair. What else they have something to say. You understand, Brother David? So have a good day and we show safe.
Thank you, my brother. Good morning, caller.
Good morning to you, David Mohammed.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning to all of the African people around the world, Trinidad and Tobago, the Caribbean. I saw the video with Mr. Gonzal. It have that thing which around the world in minutes. It just shows me that time. Everything that when he fell to the ground, he said it was bleeding and all that piece of him. But a lot of, according to the guy just now there was a lot of people angry about this. But I won't speak about that right now. But I will tell you something about the statement by our Prime Minister. I'd like to tell you how far distant he is from who he really is and who African people really is a people what he don't understand. The Prime Minister is far away from Elohim. The word Elohim means Almighty One. That's why we say Yah. The word Yah means praises unto Elohim, Almighty One. You know, African people become leaders, some of us become leaders, become prime minister, but we still don't understand ourselves and where we come from and who we are.
Yeah, well, we've made that point.
That's why, you see, that's why it's have a spiritual side and it's the fleshly side. And the spiritual side is what they don't understand. There once, more than 10 years ago, I think it was around Patrick Manning time, these people don't understand what vision means, what dreams mean. But I'm African people, like myself. We also have been in contact with angels in spirit. And the angels, what they worship in King James Bible, these angels are not white, they are like us, just like us, black. Now, some people might think it's crazy talk I'm talking this morning and all that. That's because they think like that because they don't understand who they are and where they come from and who is the creator. And this angel kicked me in spirit. That is more than 12 years ago talking about. And carry me in a place and show me that hell exists. And I will tell you something.
Exists on earth.
And earth, it doesn't seem like an earth. It looks like earth. But it is not on this physical earth here. It's a spiritual side of it. You know that? And I'm going to tell you something. The angel showed me. You see all those people thinking about what they put in the King James Bible and Jesus loved all races and all that. You see the seeds of fallen angels, children? They do not have a soul. Because you see, first we so far away from Elohim. I tell you, we don't understand who we are.
All right.
You understand? And where we are going. But man, just now, let me share something. In hell, have no souls look right enough. All the souls in hell look like people like me because we far away and we following the teaching of not our creator. And that's why the Prime Minister could come and speak. Because he don't understand. You see what they put in a book? You see people who keep us in bondage, they wrote a book. Somebody take a script out of that, right? You go to hand him and say, read that for Emancipation Day, you know? And he come up with that idea. He just understand maybe just physics. You understand? He don't understand that there is two sides of the story or two sides of life.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your call. Callers are starting to back up. Caller, good morning. Are you there? Caller.
Hello?
Yes, good morning.
Oh, good morning. What can I say? I was glad that I did not hear the talk, what the Prime Minister read his speech. I didn't hear it firsthand.
Well, it was published on social media.
Okay. I did not hear it, and I am glad because it wasn't on radio, was it?
I don't think so. I'm not sure if he actually read it out. Maybe he did. I'm not sure. But it was on his social media platforms. And like I said, I was at the Kwame Ture Center at the book sale, you know, and we had people coming in the office like one at a time, two at a time, and so on. And so I was, you know, signing and, you know, having conversations. And then I started to get these messages because a lot of people reacted.
Good.
You know, so that within itself showed that there was a heightened sense of consciousness across the population because people were immediately jolted. See, but you know, how could we compare what we went through? But let me also make the point that the remainder of his message was very positive. I mean, it was a speech. I can't say exactly how many words, but let's say if he read it, let's say it would have taken 4 minutes, you know, at least 3.5 minutes of it were positive. The problem, apart from the content, that part about comparing our enslavement to that of other peoples, was the fact that it was at the beginning. And sometimes the opening lines in such a presentation are the most memorable.
Well, this is so true. This is so true. And in something like this, I can't just explain it away by saying the rest of the speech. The core of the speech is when you open your speech.
Yeah.
But we have to get politically correct and we have to say the right thing or else. But I was glad I was spared that because that would have been too painful for me because
it was painful. But bear in mind that let me make one last point. Let me make one last point on it. Now remember, so I imagine that the Prime Minister would have gotten feedback on it, thought about it again, that is if he did write it himself, had a second thought about it and decided, you know what, we need to remove that passage. But I said I respect him for changing it, but what concerns me is that there were those who defended it.
Yes.
You know, that there were those who would have felt, no, nothing's wrong with that. Why are you saying this? And they turned their attention on me. You know, so that kind of worries me a bit, that there are African people who would stand with that statement.
Well, I don't know how the Prime Minister could reach to read out that without saying, listen. But nonetheless, he made adjustments to it.
Yeah, and I salute him for that. I respect him for that.
We have to applaud him for that.
Yeah.
But I have noticed, as you are saying there, I have noticed that there are people who are influencing and putting in things and changing history in so many ways right before our eyes. In song, in so many ways. Because imagine last year, I had to call to the attention of the Emancipation Support Committee, the Endaba, that lovely program that they have there. All through the Emancipation celebration, there was things read out about emancipation and so on. And one of the things was that Africans sold Africans for guns and trinkets.
Yeah.
I would never forget that.
Yeah.
And I don't know where they got that information from. Nobody can show me a bill of sale where Africans sell Africans. But that's another thing that's branded about now to lessen the impact of our operation.
Exactly.
That is to come. So they continue with this narrative that Africans sell Africans. Just imagine for gun and trinkets. When you know of our history, that is impossible to think of. Especially back then, according to the brother on social media. But that's not back then wasn't the African that the white man made, was the real African. To sell his people for guns and trinkets. That whole African slave trade was to empty Africa of its human resource and its people so they could go in there and steal and take and plunder exactly what they did. And one of the reasons for that sort of a savagery of slavery and Holocaust was to empty Africa so they can go in there, and they did that. So when African people just come out and read a script and say that, no, but I am glad that he addressed it, because that would have been painful for me to hear. I wouldn't have been able to say, because that wouldn't get me angry. It would just pain me. But I must say I was soothed by Sir Hilary Beckles' interview with the BBC on Hard Talk. Oh, yes, it was refreshing. And I would ask people if they can go back to it on social media or whatever and hear that interview with Sir Hilary Beckles. He was magnificent. So, Brother David, you know that the journey is not over and we have roads to go. But that making the African Holocaust, trivializing it and all of that, that is something that is very good that the Minister Farrakhan is doing. Very, very good. Just imagine, there's a song that come out, just like the Jahaji Bai. It's another total lie. And that is the song we play not on my radio. We play it over the air. Jahaji Bai is a lie. There is no truth in anything. There's another one that came out here recently, and everybody saying no because we have unity and whatnot, and saying that the East Indians here were all for independence and they wanted independence like us. Nothing could be further from the truth. So there are very definite efforts of changing the history to suit people's narratives. So we have to just be vigilant all the time. And to the brother there, tell him I got my I got my package, and I am so very grateful. Indeed, I am. I am grateful.
Lovely.
And it caused me to be the first buyer yesterday because I got there to collect my package, and the people were just started coming in and so on. And it's
nice.
after I said to myself, I should have bought more to last me out during the week, because it's every Friday.
Yes.
And it's food without chemicals. Oh my God,
Freshly
that is something that I crave, And it was good. The prices was good and everything. But the guy with the pumpkin is a thing. Oh, good God, I don't know what chemical. And pumpkin is such a good food. And they just littering it with chemicals. If you rest a piece of pumpkin down in less than no time, it turned to water. I remember as a child, pumpkin had an odor. It had a kind of odor. I couldn't kind of take it, but it had an odor. No, you don't get no odor from the pumpkin. No smell anyway, and that kind of a thing. So I was there first, and I was glad I made my purchase. But next week I would try to buy that would last me the week, because I normally buy provision all during the week and so. So thank you, Brother David, and all the work that is to be done. You go out and do it. I know you're able. I'm not making things easy for you. Thank you.
Thank you so
we have to work
very
together.
much.
That's important.
Absolutely.
Bye bye.
Beloved, I want to make a very, very quick point in response to this whole narrative that Africans sold Africans into slavery, that there was slavery on the African continent before the white people came, that we bargained and sold out one another. That is an outrageous, misleading, deceptive, over-exaggerated series of statements that try to serve a purpose to discredit the argument for reparations. The resistance by Africans on the African continent against slavery was by far greater and had much more of an impact in going to war against the white enslavers than did Africans who sold other Africans. But they completely ignore the rebellion and the resistance to slavery in Africa, but instead they try to highlight the traitors among us. And we fall for the trap. So there were governments in Africa, whole countries in Africa that dedicated their military to fight against slavery. Queen Nzinga of Angola fought for 30 years against the Portuguese fighting against slavery. The Baga people community, which is in present-day Guinea today, Tomba, around 1720, they built an alliance of different armies from different nations to go to war against the white enslavers. King Nzenga Maramba of the Congo also waged war against the slave traders in Africa. And King Agaja Trudeau of Dahomey sent armies from his nation out to capture and destroy slave trading posts in the 1700s. So fighting against slavery was common in Africa, but you don't hear about that. They always talk about, oh, Africans sold other Africans, to try to defeat and break our spirit, to make us feel embarrassed and ashamed about the history when there's so much to be proud of by our African brothers who went to war and battled against slavery. And in addition to that, according to information in French, Dutch, and British shipping records, diaries and archives and newspapers, they highlighted at least 483 reports of attacks by Africans in Africa against slave ships and their crews. Free Africans on the African continent left the shores and actually raided and destroyed slave ships and killed some of the white people who were manning them. There were, in another series of records, a recording of 92 individual attacks. Also, 388 insurrections were carried out on board 368 slave ships between 1698 and 1807. And these interventions by Africans on the African continent would have saved close to 1 million Africans from being enslaved, being kidnapped, and being taken away. This is the truth of our African history. All of this information is in Black Studies, the Black Book Mind Revolution. But they delete all of that, wipe out all of that, erase all of that and then bring to the fore the few teardrop in the ocean cases of those among us who were the traitors and the backstabbers and those who sold us out. And they embellish that narrative, put it to the forefront, and use that to represent our entire slavery experience. No, don't fall for that trap. Get the truth. Knowledge is power. We go back to the phone lines. Caller, good morning.
A blessed morning, Brother David.
Good morning to you.
That mentioned now spoke there. You hear what I'm saying? Remember, I say African were kingdoms. It's kingdoms the European come and meet.
That's right.
Portuguese, firstly, the Portuguese, they scrambled for Africa with all these Europeans coming and saying that all you have thing there, that all you're using, what we taking then. This is what they do with Africa there right now. The land space of Africa alone taking up the whole of Europe and Asia and North and South America, the land space of Africa, that is what they come and scramble and holding on to up to this present day. And by any means necessary, Brother David, we have to get it back. We must unite and get the continent back into our own hands. Africa Union, only jokey. Get together. It's time to get together.
I wouldn't say that. I mean...
Yeah, well, here I'm, Brother David. You see all these conflicts and the starvation and United Nations coming with food to feed me. You see what I'm showing you? And you can't get to these gangs, these poachers. I call them poachers because it's only women and children. They kill them. If you what I'm showing you, they run into villages and laughing. Kia, 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 kia. They're killing people. Thank you, Brother David. Watching on and listening to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you, my brother. And yes, they come with their helicopters, land in our villages, and give their food and their medicine. Their food and their medicine, their chemicals, their vaccines, etc., etc., etc. Good morning, caller.
Hi, good morning, David. Good morning to you.
Good morning to you.
I'm glad for the last part of the history that you read about, because I too, when I did history in secondary school, had an understanding that when you reach on the coast, they use African people to get more on the inner part of the continent.
Yeah.
To get the African people out. And I never extended my studies, and that's one of the areas where I always say that we always have to be hitting against a wall where we depend on the syllabus that we give in normal schools, where for a while we wanted the British. So definitely the school curriculum was shaped in that sort of way. Of course it was. Right. But you see, David, that's my issue, because let's deal with Dr. Rowley's speech. There was one, and I read yours, and I embraced it because a colleague called me, he sent it to me and he said, you heard what Dr. Rowley said? And I said, ooh, this could spark real conversation. And it was shared around people who really dealt with it in the context of Dr. Rowley being a black man. But David, when people respond to it, even another colleague on the radio, he responded more PNM though like in black people. And that is where I think people push back, where they felt that. And that's the whole thing. Because even in yours, it's only this morning, the speech had context, and you did not shape that context in your response. You went straight to the heart in your response in relation to the speech. But again, Dr. Rowley did come back, and behind the scenes he would have said, no, this was a blunder.
Yeah.
And he corrected it in the context of, listen, this did not go down well with people of African descent. But I want people not to really go on Dr. Rowley too much, because...
Right, I agree with you, and I'm sensitive to that. But my bigger concern is that there are those who would have defended the statement.
Right.
Without really waiting for his feedback on it.
Right, so I did not go. I mean, even there's a guy by the name of Wall Street, he called, because it was not even on this station, it wasn't pushed as a major conversation, because I felt people weren't comfortable with it. And to me, your response more dealt with the whole context of Dr. Rowley and his speech.
Yeah, but remember as well, I did not name him in my response. I dealt with the content, not the individual, because I was mindful of the possibility that maybe someone else wrote it on his behalf. So I dealt with the information, not the individual.
And that is what I have told you for, because my thing was to deal with this issue in the context of yes, it's coming from a leader, but sometimes I always tell people to try and shape the prime minister of a country and a black man giving a speech. It's very difficult for sometimes to do that.
Of course.
Right. But before I go, I want people to understand that African people too need to take heed of changing the conversation about African people. And it's one particular instance, and I know you might see this a low blow. I remember when Dr. Rowley was the Minister of Housing, and Dr. Rowley is not Mr. Manning. Mr. Manning was more a softer fella. He said, Dr. Rowley is not that way. And Dr. Rowley said, listen, he's opening housing, he handed over the keys, and the last thing he said,
East Moorings?
I can't remember what East Moorings, but he said, listen,
I know what you're going to say about not hanging up your shoes and putting clothes out on a line.
No, not that.
All right. Let me judge back. You go ahead.
Right. He said, go and pay all your bills. He said that. And there was a reason why I think Dr. Rowley said that. Just bam. You look at the Minister of Housing now saying that we are owing $131 million. Yeah. And we know that most of the people occupying HCV houses are people of African descent. So sometimes, it's contextualized where, yes, Dr. Rowley did, he apologized and so on. I'm grateful for that. Even when he gave his speech on Mrs. Kamala Prasad during a stage performance, and I think in context, he come back, he returned and apologized also. But before I go, I think I'm glad that you're having the conversation and you put it in the context that African man, speech about African people, and not really a PNM man talking to a nation is supposed to be dragged down in a way that we normally do. Thank you, David. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And that's the unfortunate part of it, that people would not take it, or not people, that there are some who would interpret the entire discourse as it's politics, it's PNM, it's the Prime Minister speaking on behalf of his political party. No, it's the content. It does not matter where it comes from or who says it. It's the information itself that we respond to. And once we keep it on that track and not launch a personal attack against the individual who made the statement, then we can't go wrong, because we're on the side of truth. Regardless of whose garden those seeds fall in, we accept it, and then we move forward as brothers. Caller, good morning.
Hi, morning, brother.
Good morning to you.
And greetings to you and your family. Hope all is well.
Blessings, yes.
Brother Mohammed, I'm just asking a question. What is it incorrect to say that every race or sometime in their history would have experienced slavery? Is it an incorrect statement to make?
Well, one, I can't say for every people, all right?
No, but okay, so even if it's not every people.
Right, okay, so it is true that there are other people who have experienced some form of slavery. However, that is not a comparison that can be made to the enslavement that African people...
Brother Mohammed, with all due respect, I just asked something, right? I asked whether or not it's incorrect that there would have been slavery experienced by other persons at some time during the history. You would have said it's correct in the sense that it may not be everybody.
Yeah, but it's correct, but it's a bit deceptive to say that in the context of emancipation.
Yes, I'm saying the slavery that we would have experienced as persons of African descent, put on us by Europeans, was chattel slavery, which was totally different. That's any type of other slavery, in my experience.
This is why the term Holocaust, the African Holocaust, is used, because even outside of the chattel slavery, there was rape. There was murder. If you have a servant under chattel slavery, murdering him and his community by the hundreds of thousands doesn't have anything to do with the servitude process. Mass torture, breeding, men being used as stud horses to reproduce human beings that were used as economic commodities to be bought, sold, traded, rented, and exchanged. That is a completely different experience to someone being a servant. So the sensitivity is, now remember, no one has argued with that part. It's not a matter of whether or not there has been other races who have experienced slavery. It is the comparison that is the issue. And this is why, as well, in Black Studies, and even before Black Studies was published, I did a 10-point contrast of slavery to indentureship, because there was this growing academic position, again by many of the East Indian academics in this country, who felt that indentureship could be compared to slavery as being equally harsh in some ways. These are narratives that we cannot permit. So when there's murder involved, genocide, rape, torture, destruction of the family, intergenerational trauma and impoverishment, that is more than just slavery. That is a Holocaust.
With all due respect, I'm not discounting what you're saying. I just simply asked if there was slavery that existed.
Right, but let me ask you, what is your purpose in inquiring on that?
No, because I'm saying that we would have had an issue with whoever would have written that into the speech or whatever it is of Dr. Rowley. I'm just asking because when you look at the content of Dr. Rowley's speech, he would have said exactly the things that you are saying.
Right, I said the remainder of it was a good part. He didn't change the whole speech, he just took out that part.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. But to me, in my opinion, it was sounding as if it was being said that he was saying that part that every person would have experienced slavery at every time would have been condensing and putting together what we experienced. I read it, in my opinion, that is not what I got from it. But again, everybody's interpretation will be different based on where they sit or they perceive bias or whatever it is.
Okay, but let me ask you, finally, do you agree that he should have changed it?
That's what I'm saying.
Okay,
my
good.
perception,
Yeah.
I did not see there was an issue with that because he went on to clearly explain
Right.
the type of
Okay, thanks a lot. But there are those who would defend the original statement and believe in the original statement. But this is where I have to leave it. Catch me on social media on Wednesday evening, 8 o'clock. Stay tuned to Street 919 FM. Assalamu alaikum.
Simpsons Memorial Limited, number 63 Eastern Main Road, Laventille. Internationally accredited funeral directors and embalmers. A full-service funeral home serving families of Trinidad and Tobago and internationally since 1945. At Simpsons Memorial Limited, we serve with dignity in assisting families and honoring the memory of their loved ones. Our services include professional funeral and pre-planning, burials and cremation, custom-built and imported caskets,